Good morning, first graders. Monday, April 20th, 2020. Today's lesson for math, we're moving into geometry, points, lines, and angles. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great spring break with your family. I know it's a little bit of a challenge to get back to our lessons on Monday morning, but here we go, and we're starting something fresh and new. In your videos, I've been sending you in the before spring break chunk. In some of those videos, I was kind of trying to play catch up and showing you some things that were in your packets from a week or two before. This is going to be a fresh start. So my lesson today is going to exactly match what's in your packet for this week. So I'm excited to have this great fresh start. We're going to continue. I want you to continue at home working on measuring time a little bit all through the day as you're working on your lessons would be great. But we're going to move into geometry today. And this is going to be geometry. Today's lesson, points, lines, and angles. And it is Monday, April 20th, 2020. I need to hear you with me. Geometry, geometry, and more geometry. Just show me the geometry. Now, we've been doing geometry all year during Fantastic Five. So a lot of the things we're going to be talking about this week and next week as we're moving into geometry, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about are things that you already have a lot of prior knowledge for. Geometry deals with shapes, 2D shapes. It deals with angles. It deals with lines. It deals with degrees. And it also deals with 3D or three-dimensional figures. So my geometry, I'm breaking into three parts. Part one, this week today, points, lines, and angles. Part two, we'll work with 2D figures and polygons. And part three, we'll be moving to 3D figures. If you were in the classroom with me today, as we're working on geometry all day long, I would tell you to look around the room and see some things in our classroom that are examples of things we're going to be talking about today. As we go outside for recess if we were at school, as we go to the lunchroom for lunch, as we go to encore class, I would be telling you to look all around Walton Academy, look in the classroom, look in the lunchroom, look on the playground, because when we think about geometry, we can be doing that anywhere we are, anytime, any place. Geometry is all around the world. So I want you to be thinking about at home some of the things that you see in your house, some of the things that you see outside that make you think about these things we're going to be talking about in geometry, because geometry is all around our world. Now, part one, points, lines, and angles. I wanted to show you a picture of this. This is a tool, and it is called a protractor. And a protractor is not something we're going to use a lot in first grade, but as you get older and you're learning about geometry, you're going to be using a protractor. Just like we use a ruler to measure length, you will use a protractor as you get older to measure. You're going to hear me talking about today, you're going to be talking about degrees. And I'm going to be talking about some angles that have a certain number of degrees. And this protractor is what mathematicians use to measure degrees. Now, for first grade, I'm just going to be introducing you to degrees, and we're going to do just some simple basic things. But as you get older, you will be measuring angles, and you will be measuring things in degrees using a protractor. So we're moving right into, for today, this is in your packet, and this is your points, lines, and angles. These are your vocabulary terms. Now you have this in your packet, and this is going to be your classwork job for math for today. So I wanted to go over these vocabulary terms. We've already talked about most of these through the year in Fantastic Five. I'm going to get my highlighter and see if it works right here on my Monday. And we're going to start with a point. A point is in Fantastic Five when we ball up our fist, when Mrs. Sheppard says, show me a point, and you ball up your fist, and that's what you show me. Then, we've also talked about in Fantastic Five, we have a ray. A ray is when you ball up your fist, and you hold one arm like this, out, or this. That's how we would show a ray with our body. That's what it looks like on paper. And then we have a line. A line is when we go like this, when Mr. Sheppard says, show me a line, and this is what you show me. And then we have a line segment. I know we talked about this one. This is how you would make a line segment with your body. Now, if you wanted to show a midpoint on your line segment, you would simply drop your head, and your head would be the midpoint. On paper, that's what a line segment with a midpoint looks like. And then we talked about a little bit acute angles with our bodies. Mrs. Sheppard says acute little angle. And that's what an acute angle looks like on paper. And you notice right there, in that acute angle, I wrote the little letter A that stands for acute. That's showing me that's an acute angle. That point in the middle of my acute angle is my vertex. In first grade, you need to know an acute angle is a small angle. As you get older, you're going to need to know, and I'm going to go ahead and teach you what a small angle really means. So as you get older, you'll already have some background knowledge. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. Remember, when you get older, you're going to use that protractor to measure angles, and an acute angle is less than 90 degrees. Then we move to a right angle. A right angle with our body is when we do this. We might do this. We might do this. We might do this. A right angle measures 90 degrees with a protractor. That point where those two rays come together, that would be my vertex. Notice right there I have a little R. That little R is identifying or labeling that that is a right angle. And this is a little trick that I learned. You know it's a right angle if you can draw a little square right there in the middle of that angle. If you can draw a little square, that lets you know it is a right angle. Then our next kind of angle is obtuse. We've done this one in Fantastic Five. Obtuse is when we clap and make our angle go wide. An obtuse angle is more than 90 degrees. It's a wide angle. I wrote that little O. That means it's an obtuse angle. That's a wide, a large, a more than 90 degrees. And that point right there in the middle where my two rays come together, that is my vertex. Now next we're moving from angles to lines. We have parallel lines. In class, we've done it this way, this way, this way. Parallel lines never intersect. They never cross. They never touch. Then we have intersecting lines. I like to think about the letter X. Intersecting means they cross, they touch. Then we have perpendicular lines. I'm not sure if we've done perpendiculars in Fantastic Five. I know we've done parallels. I think we've done intersecting. Not sure about perpendiculars. Perpendiculars, I think about that letter T. Perpendiculars cross to make the letter T, or I could make perpendiculars that look more like a capital T. Lowercase t, capital T. Now perpendicular lines intersect. Intersect means they cross, they touch, but when they intersect, they form right angles. You see my 4 little R's right there, and I told you if we have right angles, a little test is if you can draw a little square that lets you know that is a 90-degree right angle. Now perpendiculars can also look like this, and I would have my little square and my R. So perpendiculars can look like a lowercase t or a capital T. Now those are our geometry vocabulary terms that I wanted to introduce you to. I'm going to be honest. You don't really have to know that in first grade. But Mr. Sheppard believes if you learn these terms in first grade, you're going to understand as we go from points, lines, angles. We'll use our points, lines, angles as we move into making our 2D figures. So these are your geometry vocabulary terms for points, lines, angles. This, if we were in class today, I would tell you this is our classwork example. That's your example that shows you what those vocabulary terms look like. Now, one of your classwork jobs today is you're going to take that classwork example that we just went over, and you're going to copycat it. Sorry, wrong page. You're going to copycat it here, and it says draw each vocabulary term using your handy dandy ruler. Now, if we were at Walton Academy today, this would be your homework. Since you're working from home today, this is going to be your CW. This sounds weird. CW example. Or better yet, we can go ahead instead of CW so it flows right along with the way we would do it if you were here at school. Let's make that an HW because it is homework because you're doing it at home. So your HW, CCW example, you're going to copycat what I just went over on the smartboard. You're going to use this as a resource, and yours, when you finish, should look exactly like mine. And this is your Monday classwork job that you're doing from home today. Now we're going to come back and we're going to do that together a little bit later in my lesson, but I want to go right into your shared reading for today. Your new shared reading, you have, I think, 3 pages in this week's packet, but your first shared reading is what I'm going to call the Geometry Sheppard Shuffle. Because when we do geometry, There's a lot of things, little tricks that we can use to help us remember our vocabulary terms. Now for today, I'm just going to start by reading this to you. You have two choices. You can read with me from the smart board, or you can press pause and you may grab your shared reading from your math packet for this week. Now for right now, I'm going to do this just in a mostly talking, chanting voice. We're going to add some motions to it after we've gone through it a couple of times. But you know that first time we do a new poem, you listen to Mrs. Sheppard as she reads. Your eyes are either on the smart board or on your poem in your packet, and you are doing mostly listening. When we do this a second time, you're going to join in, and I'm going to say, now we're working on our fluency. And after we've done it a couple of times, we're going to add some motions and some actions. I'm going to let you get up and move around a little bit. In fact, if you'd like to stand up right now and move around a little bit, this would be a good time. Listening, eyes, reading with me, but listening with those big ears. Stand up. Stand up. Let's do the geometry Sheppard shuffle. Stand up. Stand up. Let's do the geometry Sheppard shuffle. A point. A point. A big fat juicy point. A point. A point. A big fat juicy point. Beret. Beret. It only goes one way. Beret. Beret. It only goes one way. The line goes both ways every time. The line goes both ways every time. Line segment, oh line segment. Jump up high, bend down low. Now hold up two tight fists. Yes, hold up two tight fists. I'm going to take a little pause as I scroll, and I'm going to catch my breath because this one is a little bit long. Midpoint. Oh, midpoint. Drop your head. Just drop your head between those two tight fists. A cute little angle. A cute little angle. Less than 90 degrees. Less than 90 degrees. Right angle. Right angle. Now show me an L. 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 90 degrees. 90 degrees. 90 degrees. 90 degrees. Obtuse angle. Obtuse angle. Obtuse angle. Obtuse angle. More than 90 degrees. More than 90 degrees. I'm going to take a little breath, a little pause while I do a little scroll. I told you this one was a little bit long. Parallel. Parallel. Never cross, never touch, never intersect. Parallel. Parallel. Never cross, never touch, never intersect. Intersecting. Intersecting. Make an X with your arms. Yes, they cross, or yes, they do. Intersecting. Intersecting. Make an X with your arms. Yes, they cross, oh yes, they do. Perpendicular. Perpendicular. Make a T with your arms. Perpendicular. Perpendicular. Make a T with your arms. They cross to form right angles. They cross to form right angles. Stand up. Stand up. Let's do the geometry Sheppard shuffle. Stand up. Stand up. Let's do the geometry Sheppard shuffle. Now I'm going to be honest. That's the first time I've done that one in front of the whole group. and it's much easier to do it when you're here with me in class. It's much more difficult when I'm making these videos and I'm in this big classroom all by myself. That actually was written by Mrs. Sheppard. I wrote that even though a lot of those things are things we've talked about in Fantastic Five, and we've done those little chants together. I put them all together in one long poem as part of your shared reading packet for this week. So yes, that was written by Mrs. Sheppard, and I dedicated it to my first grade class at Walton Academy. Mimi, Codebug, Eli, Lawman, Eliza Lou, Spence, Muno Uno, Sydney Lou. Yes, I even put in little Sydney Lou, who's not with us anymore. Sydney Lou Who, John Boy, Sid the Squid, Wells Fargo Town Bank, Ben Flynn, and Miss Tom Tom Flower Power. Now that is in your shared reading packet for today. You know, the first time we do a new poem, it's a little bumpy, it's a little slow, and after we've done it several times, it will get much, much easier. Now that we've done our poem, let's go back and do our classwork example. This is exactly what you're going to do at home for your HWCCW example. And I'm going to keep referring back to my page, which is the same thing you're going to do. When I draw a point, it's a big, fat, juicy point. Make sure your point is big, fat, and juicy. When I draw my ray, point, make sure you have that arrow on the end. You also could make your ray look like that. Either way you choose to do it. Make sure your arrow's on the end, a big, fat, juicy point. A line, no point, arrows on both ends. A line segment, point, point, and it has a midpoint, so it's going to have a big, fat, juicy point in the middle. Acute angle, a little angle, arrow, arrow, point, and beside that point, I'm going to write vertex, and it's less than 90 degrees. It's a small angle. This will make more sense as we get rolling in geometry. A right angle looks like the letter L, arrow, arrow, point. I like to draw that little square in the middle. I'm going to put my R for right, 90 degrees, and that point right there is my vertex. I know you're telling me at home I forgot something right here, which I always do in class, and you're always here to help me remember. I'm going to put my little A right here. That's going to label that as an acute angle. I think I have everything. I'm going to go back and check it at the end. Now I'm going to move, didn't scroll, I'm going to move to obtuse is a wide angle, arrow, arrow, point, O for obtuse, right there is my vertex. Acute was less than 90 degrees, right was 90 degrees, and obtuse is going to be more than 90 degrees. It's a wide angle. Parallel lines, we've talked about these a lot in Fantastic Five. Parallels, this, 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 they never Oh, my pen's being a little Fruit Loopy. Now my smart board's being a little Fruit Loopy. I hope my eraser works. Parallels never intersect. That means they never cross. Intersecting, I like to think about the letter X. Intersecting, they do cross. And perpendiculars, I like to think about the letter T. Perpendiculars, they cross to form right angles. I like to draw my little squares in the middle. I'm going to label right, 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 right. Now let me go back to my example and see if there's anything I left off. I think I left off something down here. Point ray looks good, looks good. I have my less than 90 degrees, more than 90. Vertex, I think I'm missing something right down here. I'm missing intersect to form right angles. So I'm going to come right back down here and I'm going to add intersect to form right angles. Now when you finish, you double check yourself, and as you're working today, a great resource to use would be to use your handy dandy ruler, helping you draw those rays and those angles and those lines. Another resource would be, right beside you, I would have my classwork example. That's a great resource. Now that's your classwork job for today. Another job, we just did the Geometry Sheppard Shuffle. Another job that you're going to have for this week is you're going to be using your manipulatives. Manipulatives are things that we put in our hands that we use to help us learn math concepts. When we were working on measuring time, I sent home a little clock. As we're working on geometry, I had some things in your bag for this week that you may not have been sure what I wanted you to do with. We're today going to make our points, lines, and angles vocabulary terms with toothpicks and counters. Toothpicks were in your bag. Counters I sent home a few weeks ago for you to use if you set up a hundreds board station. Or you can be creative and resourceful. Creative means you come up with a different way to make your vocabulary terms. Resourceful means you use what you have at home. You use what you might find in your house or outside. You can make your points, lines, and angles vocabulary terms with other things you have at home in your house or with things you find outside. So if you'll give me a minute, I'm going to show you at my table, I'm going to show you how you can do this at home. Patient as I shift my camera, show you how you can do this at home with your toothpicks that were in your bag and your counters. Sorry guys, I had my camera turned the wrong way. I don't have Miss Tom Tom in here as my technical director. She would be getting me straight on all this. So I'm going to start right here. I have my vocabulary right here that I'm using as a resource, just like you would do. I'm going to start with a point. I used a counter to make a point. Now, because I'm videoing from my camera, I can't make all this go wide or I'll lose it on the screen. At home, you could sit at your kitchen table, you could sit up at your kitchen counter, and you could make all these all spread out. I'm going to make and erase so I don't lose you on my camera. I start with, that would be a point, and then I could take that point and I could add a toothpick to make a ray. Then I could take away my counter I could add a toothpick to make a line. Then to make a line segment, counter, counter. That would be a line segment. And then to make a line segment with a midpoint, I could put a counter right there, smack dab in the middle. Then I'm going to erase. I'm going to make a cute little angle. Looks just like that. I'm going to take those same two toothpicks and that same counter to make a right angle. Then I'm going to take those same toothpicks and that counter to make an obtuse angle. Obtuse, remember, is really wide. I'm going to take up that counter, parallels, or parallels, or parallels. And then I take those same two toothpicks, intersecting, and then I take those same two toothpicks, perpendicular, looks like a T, or I could do perpendicular like that, that looks like a capital T. Now that's how I could use toothpicks and counters to make my new geometry vocabulary terms. You could also, give me a second as I move my camera back to the smartboard. You could also, if we were in class, I sometimes like to make those geometry vocabulary terms. I like to sometimes make those with pretzels and marshmallows. So if you had pretzels and marshmallows at home, that would be another way you could make your math vocabulary terms. Now you also have in your, or had in your bag this week, you also have a geo board and a bag of rubber bands. On your geo board, you see those little pegs help you put in a vertex. On your geo board, you can actually make those vocabulary terms using your geo board and your rubber bands. This always happens if we were in class. I would be right now probably setting up a geo board station. So this would be a good station that you could set up at home. And if you went to the geo board station, probably while I was in a math group, checking that example, that classwork example, while I was in math groups, I would probably have some of you go to the geo board station. This happens every year when I send my first graders to the geo board station. Some of these rubber bands are going to pop. They're going to break. And first graders, every time I open up the geo board station, I always have first graders that get really upset, and sometimes even they want to cry a little bit, and they say, Miss Sheppard, I broke a rubber band. It's going to happen. These rubber bands, some of them are going to break. If you break one, put it in the trash can and get you another one. That's why I sent you a nice bag so you would have plenty. So you can also, for math manipulatives, have some explore time on your geo board. You're going to be using that geo board for the next couple of weeks as we continue with points, lines, angles, and as we move into 2D figures and polygons. Now, I didn't read you a book today. I do have some math books I'm going to be reading you that are going to talk about these things we're learning about in geometry. But I do have a song that I'd like to share with you, and it's an Angles Everywhere You Look song. This is going to be a good stopping point for our lesson today. I know my math lessons tend to be going a little bit long with all the other things you have to do. So as you're doing the math videos, I typically am letting the math videos go for a couple of days before I come up with a new one. So the math videos, these are videos that are really good for you to break in chunks. Press that pause button, take a break, come back to it. But I do want to share Angles Everywhere You Look song, and this is going to be a wrap for our math geometry today. This is going to help you remember those new vocabulary terms. And I'm not sure, guys, it may not open. It opened on Miss Sheppard's laptop. I don't think it's going to work. I think there's a little glitch. I might have to come back and try this again. No, it's not going to work. And you know that happens sometimes when we're in class. I'm going to try it one more time. And that's just going to be A-okay. So since we can't watch our Angles Everywhere You Look song, this is going to be a good stopping point for today. This would be a good time for you to go right into your HWCCW example and go ahead and get that job done. Might want to take a quick break, but that's going to wrap us up for our math lesson today. I will work on this and see if I can get this to come up for our next math video that will be coming up very soon. Hope you have a happy Monday. First day back after spring break. I know it's a challenge for all of us, but I hope you have a happy Monday. Great rest of your day. I still miss you so much, and thank you so much for working so hard at home. That's a wrap for this lesson.